Hello, my name is Dave McElwee. Thanks for watching this presentation, which was developed in 2023. It's titled Inside My Afterlife, a 20-year-old tale, and features the introduction of the Delusionotist, my curious alter ego. This PowerPoint is the origin story for my first novel, My Afterlife, which is set in Smethport, Pennsylvania, and inspired by the town's week-long sesquicentennial in 2003. Act 1, the fusion. Simply defined, fusion is combining element A with element B to create new element C. With this in mind, let's see if we can separate fact from fiction. Come with me and take a magical journey fueled by fusion. Given My Afterlife was published in 2023, I wanted to present it as a birthday gift to the town. Here's the pitch. My Afterlife is a novel set in Smethport, arriving just in time to celebrate the town's 170th birthday. The story concludes following the extraordinary fireworks capping Smethport's 150th birthday in 2003. My Afterlife is this writer's account of an odyssey that ends that night at the Rose Hill Cemetery while the town folk cheered below, surrounding the Hamlin Lake. My Afterlife unfolds a story of small town friends as though watching them through a rotating kaleidoscope. Together they face emotional ups and downs, but none more profound than the blunt force trauma of watching another's kaleidoscope cease to rotate. Loss is a circumstance each of us must unfortunately experience. Given this inevitability, be sure to cram your timeline with great memories of fun, family, and friends. To me, memories are tangible as they're held forever in our mind. Think of encountering a friend after the passage of time. Generally, the conversation drifts to a shared experience, such as the best ice cream cone ever, a scary merry-go-round ride, or seeing a palomino trout in the creek. Memories can make you feel as though your leaves are green again. Sometimes this makes me think of life as a mathematical miracle, given the following. The probability of you existing at all comes out to 1 in 10, followed by 2,685,000 zeros. Benazar concludes the odds of you being alive are basically zero. It seems we've beaten Benazar's odds, none the worse for wear. Thus I call this my accidental life. Who knew what you'd do until you did? We all have timelines. Act 2, Reflections. Everyone has a timeline. It's natural to look back and review your experiences. Reflecting on our past is just part of being alive, and we accept the fact that everything we expect to happen can change in the blink of an eye. So hold tight to those you love and embrace the journey. Here's some of mine. After a bit of research, I learned that authors often share a glimpse into their life and writing process with the audience. The Delusionotist is a piece I wrote to fulfill this understanding. Just like the Delusionotist's cube, our timeline often shifts. Here's a few of mine. David McElwee was born and raised in Northwest Pennsylvania. He earned a BS from the University of Pittsburgh and an MS in clinical psychology from the University of Laverne. During his career, he has worked to build bridges past barriers and supporting people living with developmental disabilities. My Afterlife is his first novel. That was my bio from the About the Author section in my book. With apologies, I failed to mention my most important academic achievement, high school graduate from Smethport Area High. Failure to disclose this was a short-sighted attempt to create mystery as to where's he from. Perhaps I should have chosen a different photo which accompanies the book's bio to really drive home the intrigue. As my t-shirt states, I'm straight out of Smethport, the home of the Hubbers. Those of us from there have been asked the question you may be thinking right now. What's a Hubber? So in the name of school spirit, we the local inform the curious, Smethport was designated the county seat, as it's centrally located in McKean County, thus the hub. Hence, we are hubbers. And get this, our mascot is a wagon wheel. Yes, you heard that right, a wagon wheel. I did a web search recently in hopes of identifying others sharing this nickname, only to discover lots of lions, tigers, and bears, oh my, but no hubbers. A noteworthy and unique point of interest, you must agree. Sorry, but in the name of full disclosure, I didn't search the number of towns with wagon wheels as their mascot. Much like unicorns and leprechauns, hubbers can be difficult to spot. But when you do, tell them their origin story first, and they'll feel wheel good. I must confess, writing my afterlife forced me to realize I aspire to be a certified delusionotist, thus my current academic pursuit. Polly Pry, my inspiration, is credited with coining the term in an 1887 article published in the New York World newspaper, describing delusionotists as having the ability to create an alternative reality by mixing truth with misrepresentation in such a way the story sounds plausible. Polly called this effect delusionosis and warned the public those with this ability have the choice to use it for fun or foul, so beware. Polly's fascination with delusionotists began during the Wild West era after attending a county fair in her home state of Colorado. She recalls, I experienced a clang in my brain upon hearing the grandiose promises of snake oil salesmen extolling the virtues and curative powers of their newest elixir. Their pontifications and proclamations are camouflaged with fancy words and phrases flowing rogue, compelling unsuspecting fairgoers to believe that drinking their elixir cures whatever ails. So I decided to investigate. By this time, Polly was a renowned journalist and now awakened skeptic. So she set forth to debunk the curative powers of these elixirs as false advertisement, but more importantly, to inform the public that delusionotists are everywhere. So beware if in the presence of one with malintent. Polly concluded her research after a year traveling to county fairs across America, studying the claims of those peddling bold promises. During her examination, Polly reviewed available morgue records confirming the elixir did not cure old age, nor the myriad of other ailments purported to do so. However, she found no evidence of complaint from those experiencing the pleasurable effects of drinking the concoction. Despite this conflict, Polly continued to publish articles denouncing the influence of these delusionizing fabricationists, as she called them. Her efforts led to the extinction of many in the early 1900s when an outraged public learned that 70% of their elixir contained mystery ingredients other than alcohol, morphine, and cocaine. Polly was ambivalent as to the impact of her landmark publications, which ultimately contributed to the creation of the 1906 Pure Food and Drugs Act. After all, no product should contain 70% of unknown substances. Ultimately, she was disappointed in that the public missed her primary message, stating later in life delusionotists are a tricky bunch, capable of popping up across all walks of life. Please be wary. When queried as what one should do if sensing the onset of delusionosis, Polly Pry stated pragmatically, snap your fingers first. Sorry, you got me. I was embellishing parts of the Polly Pry piece to fulfill a requirement to become a certified delusionotist. The assignment was to submit a written piece to exceed the following standard. A trainee must combine fact with fiction and fabricate a story, leaving the reader to wonder what was fact and what was fabrication. If sniffing trickery or suspicion may have led you to consult Samuel Johnson's 1755 landmark dictionary, or more likely type letters into a device only to discover delusionotist, delusionosis, delusionizing, and fabricationists are not found upon page or display. These unwords were chosen as they seemed legitimate in the context of certain truths about Polly Pry's real life. I've yet to receive feedback from the certification committee regarding the polypry piece, but I'll let you know when I do. Maybe I went a little far with the delusionotist concept in describing my writing process and simply could have said, my afterlife is a work of fiction set in a small town, and the familiarity of Smethport allowed me to see the story as I know where the sidewalks heave. The characters presented are fictional, and any similarities to people past, present, or future are easiest explained as coincidental. Many locations, time references, and events throughout the story are real, but may have been subjected to fabrication to fortify the storytelling. Which leads us to fact or fabrication, a version of Ask the Author in which the reader identifies a curious observation, poses a question, confirms a fact, or identifies when a fact was fabricated. I suggest you don't have to be from Smethport to ponder a point. So, to encourage participation by those unfortunate to have never walked down Main Street, a personal example is provided to get your thinking twitching. In my afterlife, a young boy named Skeeter McGee finds a chunk of glass in the crawl space beneath his house while helping his father. The fact is, I found a green chunk of glass beneath the house helping my father many years ago. The fabrication is the transformation of the glass into a yellow crystal ball and its subsequent importance to the story. This picture is that glass chunk I still retain. If so inclined, join the merriment and submit your comments using the contact button on my website to play Fact or Fabrication. But I jump ahead. Here's what's happened after high school. Upon completing my undergraduate degree from the University of Pittsburgh, I followed traditional expectations and got a job. In my case, it was working as the overnight staff in a facility for 8 individuals living with developmental disabilities. I did more cleaning the first 4 months at the job than direct support, but was intrigued. After a year, I left the job when my brother, Chuck, asked I join him in Alaska for a canoe trip. No convincing was required. So, as I'm fond of saying, I went on a 10-day canoe trip that lasted nearly 11 years. And it is during the canoe trip years I fell in with a group of committed professionals motivated to improve the lives of people with developmental disabilities. I was intimidated by the group's impressive credentials, thus mostly listened, but in time I began to understand the complexities of the field and liked it. I enjoyed research, developing training programs, espousing clinical sensibility, but most importantly, never lost connections with those supported, as that's where the best learning occurs. It seems a niche had found me, hence my accidental career. A few years later, I was honored when asked to present and conduct a series of workshops with Dr. Todd Risley, in which we addressed deinstitutionalization, wraparound services, training, and the development of competent community settings for people with developmental disabilities. This experience opened a door to which I was compelled to step through. Thus, in 1996, I relocated to the East Coast, joining an organization in which the mission was to establish community programs for people living with developmental disabilities labeled difficult to serve, who were then in large institutions. I am proud to say we assisted with hundreds of transitions in the subsequent years. Cheers to the team. And as they say, all good things come to an end. Whereupon I left the field in 2020 satisfied. During my career, I have been fortunate to have had excellent mentors and exceptional colleagues. Thanks. However, I would be remiss if failing to mention the most important lesson is from those living with developmental disabilities who ask a simple request. Treat me like a real person. Salute. Now I'm here. I always thought it would be cool to write a book, and when a 20-year-old idea from 2003 centered on reunifying a pair of drumsticks, a set of skeleton keys, and scapular patches separated following the death of the gift giver came calling, I answered. So with time available, encouragement from family and friends, and plenty of post-it notes. My afterlife is. So, on my journey, I've learned it customary for authors to read from their work when doing book presentations. Never known to be unconventional, I'll do the same. Today's selection is from Chapter 3, titled Janitor and Junkman. It's a moment in the story when the cube changes everything, creating a significant reflection point on each character's timeline as they journey through life. It's 1965. The McGees anticipated with great excitement Skeeter getting his first two-wheeled bicycle before school. But with Mary's declining health, it did not happen. Skeeter lodged no complaints, understanding a bike is secondary to the time left with his mother. A couple of weeks after her burial, Skeeter announces to his father, "I think I'm ready. Mommy would want me to get a big bike so I can carry my books to read everywhere. Remember, she said the world is a classroom." "That's great, Skeeter. I guess a bike will require fabrication to carry all your stuff," his father says, alleviating his son's unsaid concern. "Fabrication sounds about right." Skeeter smiles, knowing his father means it will be fixed to carry everything he needs. The junk man's home and business is up Irons Hollow, a couple miles west of town on Route 59. A little bit of everything and a lot of other stuff, too, the junk dealer is fond of saying of his collection. Barden Oates, or more commonly referred to as the junk man, appears to have an aversion to scissors, razors, and shears, given the hidden condition of his face. Hair from his head, sideburns, brow, beard, neck, and most likely his back commingle, leaving visible his nose, eyes, and mouth opening when he talks. He's a hairy guy, as all Ben says, chuckling when describing the junk man's appearance to his son. Skeeter asks, "What's funny?" "Oh, something a teacher said when teasing the hairy junk man," Ben replies. "What was it?" The boy presses for further explanation. "Well, he said he's not sure if the junk man is an ornery human or a domesticated black bear, claiming he's never seen a shirt collar around his hairy neck." Ben laughs and Skeeter anticipates. The ornery rumor is dispelled when the jovial junk man greets Ben with a friendly handshake and Skeeter with a pat on the back. The men converse momentarily, then the junk man says, "Let's go look at the bikes." At this point, Skeeter can also confirm his flannel shirt has a collar, and yes, you can only see his nose, eyes, and mouth opening when he talks. Rounding the corner of the barn, Skeeter sees 3 rows of bicycles. He skips ahead, leaving his father to talk with the junk man. Skeeter examines each of the two-wheeled wonders. After a considerable amount of time, the boy states, "I'll have this one," pointing to the pink buzz bike with purple decals and a yellow flowered basket attached to the handlebar. The men look at each other and Ben asks, "Why this bike?" Addressing his father like a professor to a naive student asking an elementary question, Skeeter delivers a clear dissertation as to his well thought out selection. The junk man's interest peaks as a young boy prattles on about the area between the handlebars and fender, the space between his knees, replacing the basket and putting a pencil box on the short back fender. Then Skeeter says with the confidence of an engineer, "I bet we fabricate this into a real bicycle book bag." When the 6-year-old boy said fabricate, the junk man was hooked. Unsure how to get involved in the fabrication project, the junk man begins to check the bike over to make sure it's safe. He points out the dry rotted tires, reporting he has good ones in another shed they'll put on. Then he says flatly, "I'm pretty good at fixing stuff," and was listening when Skeeter said fabricate into a real bicycle book bag. "Maybe I can help. If not, I just wanted to make sure your son's bike is safe." Ben does not take this gesture as an infringement on his fatherhood, but as something else, kindness. Skeeter takes the gesture as proof the junk man is a human and not a domesticated black bear, and agrees to the offer with one condition. The bike doesn't have to go fast, it just has to hold lots of books and stuff. After he is sure the McGees will not return due to the boy's apprehension about his bike selection, the junk man fires up his salvage truck and heads to town as a man on a mission. Now we're going to pick up the scene where Skeeter McGee rides his bicycle book bag for the first time. The portfolio bag sits snug and tight on the bike. The zipper is easily operated by Skeeter, revealing 3 storage slots for magazines, books, and other ephemera. In a moment of inspiration, the junk man uses snaps to mount a wicker creel to the handlebar and front fender. This allows easy removal when Skeeter decides to lunch or explore away from the bike. They call it the lunch creel. Skeeter, there's a space below the banana seat and back fender to put a container, which can be fastened to these brackets. Let's walk to the parts department. I think we can find something that will work, the junk man says, referring to one of his sheds packed with a hodgepodge of collectibles, including furniture, dishes, bottles, and tin cans. From his can collection, the junk man hands Skeeter a tin cookie container with a hinged lid. The tin fits perfectly beneath the seat. Skeeter lowers the lid of the tin and places his plastic pencil box and spiral-bound memo notebook within. The pair examine the bicycle book bag and agree it's ready to ride, but still a work in progress. Ben watches as the junk man lifts the bicycle book bag from the truck and sets it on the avenue. Excitedly, Skeeter jumps on the bike, fortunate that the training wheels keep him from tipping over. Slowly he rotates the pedals and the bike moves forward. Within minutes, Skeeter requests the removal of the training wheels. After several false starts, he shakily rides down the avenue, but suddenly topples over. When his father and the junk man approach, the smiling, skin-kneed boy says, "Look, the cookie tin, the lunch creel, and the book bag all stayed shut. Now that's fabrication." Act 4, the reveal. I recognize my obligation to provide clarity as to the title of today's presentation, Inside My Afterlife, a 20-year-old tale. During the reveal, there will be no spoilers regarding critical storylines to those who have yet to read the book. Everything has its origin story, its beginning. Here's my afterlives. In 2003, Smethport hosted a week-long celebration honoring its 150th birthday, or sesquicentennial. To join the merriment, I decided to create a tribute music CD, which evolved into Ode to Smethport, a story and song. Desiring it to appear authentic, a CD cover was designed, the songs were listed, and liner notes were created. Just over 300 copies were produced, of which my daughter and I handed out to people we met during the week-long celebration. What a great time we had. Remember fusion? A plus B equals C. Here's fusion. And We Came Home is a beautiful pictorial published in 2003, which captured the week-long events, including historical tours, a Victorian tea party, poetry readings, bike rides, and other fun and games. One of my favorite events was the Hamlin Lake Boat Flotilla. Here's an example of fusion noted in my afterlife. After several minutes, a lake is filled with floating crafts circulating clockwise. Joan paddles through the traffic to the center of the lake, which provides the perfect vantage point to take pictures and make notes. Suddenly, her paddle boat jolts when T-boned by a dented camouflage canoe. The father makes a quick joke and an apology about hitting the hover buoy. His daughter reaches into her tote bag and hands Joan a compact disc labeled Ode to Smethport, telling her the songs are a story. Joan takes a few pictures of the camouflage canoe and asks the young girl if she can keep it secret. Affirming she can, Joan tells the little girl she is writing an article about the festival. The young girl replies, "I'll bet no matter what you write, it will be great. Good luck." As they drift apart, Joan asks the girl her name. "I'm Caitlin with a C and no Y." Joan makes a note. Joan, the CD recipient, is the second most central character in my afterlife. Through curious circumstances, she possesses the yellow earrings made from the glass Skeeter found beneath his house. She's a reporter and on assignment to cover the sesquicentennial and contributed to photos to the book And We Came Home. This picture at the Victorian Tea is of that little girl who gave Joan the Ode to Smethport CD during the flotilla. Notice the spelling of the name is with a K and not a C. However, we forgive Joan's spelling error given her stress in believing herself delusional, which then becomes her reality when the four gifts given by Skeeter McGee 26 years earlier are reunited at the cemetery as a crowd at the lake below cheers the fireworks, which closes the sesquicentennial in 2003. Reading the fine print is fundamental. As I conclude, I would like to refer to the liner notes from Ode to Smethport, a Story and Song from 2003. This small-town shenanigan produced by Dave McElwee in association with Witchinamy and the Intangible Force. See you in 2053. Okay, Caitlin will. Coming soon, My Afterlife. All I know is this. We start at one point and we end in another and do stuff in between. DM77. Thanks for allowing me to be a dot on your timeline. Somebody should have snapped their fingers. I'm just a delusionotist in training. Thanks all. And now the shameless plug. My Afterlife is available online. Check out my author page on Facebook and visit my website. And I'm happy to announce that my new novel, My Accidental Investigation, and its PowerPoint story are now available. See you down the road.